everybody, it's Frances, and here we are in my shadow den, shall we call it. This week we're going to be exploring shadows, and you can see here I have a various array of different objects and materials that we're going to take a look at, and so we'll get to that in a second. But firstly, this is just a corner in my bedroom. I've closed the curtains, turned out the light, and then I have one light source, which is one of these lamps from IKEA. So it's kind of a very bendy reading lamp, which is great. So I can really move it around and manipulate it. They don't get hot, so if you did think this was quite a nifty little piece of kit, they're pretty safe to use with young children. They don't get hot at all, and I've used them in workshops, and they move around a lot. So and it's still working wonderfully. So yeah, but I have one of these lamps. You could use a reading lamp, you can use a torch, you could use even your phone. You know, so lots of the phones have an app with a good strong light. And basically just find an area in your house which you can create a small little corner, a little den. That in itself is very appealing to young children. The ability to play with light and shadow is even more so. So yeah, so I'm going to talk you through just various simple ways of using light and creating shadows, playing with that idea, using things that you probably have at home. So yeah, so first of all, we're going to make some shadow puppets. So for our shadow puppet making, here are the materials I'm going to be using. So basically I've got some paper and card here. This is to make and cut out various shapes. I've particularly stuck with kind of geometric shapes, but really they can be anything at all. Identifiable shapes are great, so children can distinguish what they are, name them, and pick a preference for a particular shape. I've also got a couple of our marbling moons from last week. So you're welcome to reuse anything that you've made while we've been doing these sessions. I have some pencils to draw with, some lollipop sticks to stick on the back of the puppets to kind of move them around. Again, if you don't have lollipop sticks, anything will do. You could use pencils themselves and just tape them on. You could use cocktail sticks. You could use kebab sticks, kebab skewers, chopsticks, anything at all is useful in this. We've got the scissors and some tape. So like I said, the idea is that we use some shapes that are cut out and then we tape them together to create perhaps a character or an alternative shape. That can look like anything you like. So I have some here that I've already cut out. I've got some wavy shapes and so on. You take your tape and you just take the pieces of tape, which I've already taken off here, and just take them onto the paper. It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, things being a bit more unusual angles could probably make for more interesting shadows. So let me just stick one more on here. So the idea is we get some shapes like that. So they're stuck together now. This can be used in any which way you like. And then I'm going to use a lollipop stick and just tape it to the back, just like that. Okay, these are some of the ideas that I made earlier. Again, I've reused some stars from last week. My first one that I made is this character here, which I'm particularly pleased with. So what I've done here is I've used my lamp to create a spotlight. You don't have to do this. You can make a whole wall of light that the children can get really close to and get underneath and get in front of themselves and play with their own shadows. But for this situation, just to showcase the shadow making that we do here, you can see there the shadow is really quite big, and then we get it up close and it looks like a little character. So you can encourage children to play with their character, make the character small, make the character big, perhaps name the character, where's the character going, and so on. So it's a kind of very free and open activity. Now what I've got here is some iridescent card that I found. It's beautiful. Got some really nice rainbows here. That in itself will create kind of a nice shape on here, and you can see there that it's actually creating really nice sort of rainbow effects as well. So it kind of, there we go, on the wall. Look at that. So we're creating the shadow, which is pretty cool, kind of geometric pattern. And we've also got our rainbow colours on the walls. So they can play with those. They could name the colours, sing songs about rainbows. Again, it's just kind of creating a really sensory, playful activity. So there we go. We've got our iridescent card, mirror card. Mirrors would work as well. In fact, a few things can go to make some interesting textures and shapes with the shadows that I'm going to show you just shortly. Okay, so on my final one, which is using one of the stars from last week, is just a shooting star like that. So you can see the shadow just coming along as you do there. Feel free to use anything that you've got. I mean, I've used white card, but again, any cardboard offcuts, pieces of paper, anything that you've got around will be great for this activity. Getting to the shops isn't ideal at the moment, but I'm sure, as with most families, lots of children, they like to have a few bits of arts and crafts around. So just use what you have in your cupboards. Okay, so that is our spotlight and our puppet making. And now I'll move on to the next idea. Okay, so what I've collected here on my table, which is looking a little chaotic right now, but that's okay, are just 4 objects that actually I just found as I was setting up for this activity, and just wanted to play with them a bit and see what would happen when light was passed through them, and you know, just have a play around basically. So this is just a usual glass tumbler, and I wanted to see what patterns we could make on the wall with our glass tumbler. So there you go, you're getting some really interesting patterns just by passing the tumbler through there. We've got shapes, which are great to play with. We've got the movement of the light, the shadows. So yeah, so even a glass in front of a strong light source kind of makes something quite otherworldly and strange. And so yeah, so have a look at the things you have in your kitchen. You know, I'm a big fan of all those things that people have in their kitchens. They're always useful to play with. This is a ball. This is one of a small sort of bouncy ball, spiky bouncy ball. And there again, it looks quite strange. It looks like a cell or something. So yeah, and you can see there it's got the colour again. It's got a nice yellow colour. So again, any toys hanging around are always very useful. This is just a piece of ribbon, gift ribbon, but it also kind of looks quite kind of, I don't know, it made me think of Under the Sea, you know, like a squid's tentacles or something like that. So it's an opportunity to use your imagination. I mean, that could always attach that to one of our, there we go, we can attach that to one of our discs there, one of our moons, and he's kind of creating a little creature. And then last but not least, this is a bottle of bubbles, and I thought when I saw it I was like, this that's just a quite nice colour. So yeah, you've probably got lots of things around, washing up liquid bottles and things like that. They can always be used in this kind of play where it's just about exploring and experimenting. So again, I've been raiding my kitchen. So what I've set up here is just the back of a chair attached to the frame of a mirror that I took the mirror out of because it didn't quite fit. But I've passed some rope through there, and I've used bits of twine or wool, or just hung things on there with wire or with the pegs. Again, to just create textures and shapes. So what we've got here, we've got feather, a twig or branch from outside, a CD. We've got a small little sieve and some spoons. Oh, that one's got caught there. Let me hang that down there. And kind of a draining device. And they basically create some really interesting shadows, and they've got that sound element to it as well, so it's good to experiment with that. But using these objects, it's about shape, it's about textures, and just having fun with shadows, seeing what they look like without our objects in sight. And they're just really interesting to play with. So again, that's another idea, another way of playing with light and shadow. A good torch would work perfectly well, a lamp. So yeah, and again, obviously your phone. So this is just another simple thing where you've probably got loads of this kind of thing in your garden, in your kitchen, in your home. You don't need complicated objects to create really interesting activities for young children. Getting to play with kitchen utensils, that's what children love to do. So just go in there and have a look and see what you want to use and see what they want to use as well. So yeah, one more activity to show you. And last but not least, this little activity. This is using some wooden blocks that I have and some little toy animals that I have in a collection of. And I think that this is a really charming little activity where they can play with scale, they can identify the animals, create wonderful stories. The idea of having the shadows of the animals, the silhouettes of the animals, kind of creates a real atmosphere to it. The darkness and being in the shadows, again, it's quite exciting and mysterious for children. And so using things that you already have that perhaps they don't play with anymore, you can bring them back to life almost to make them, help them to see them in a different way. So using the shadows can really, really help that. Again, I've placed each of the animals on a block, but again, they don't need to be. You could also create, so just put that there. You can see our cow shadow there, the giant. Again, because you can really play with scale and how the light changes, or where the placement is changes the size of the animal. But what I've done there is just stuck a lollipop stick to one of the animals. So again, that's another way you could do it. You could hang the animals off a piece of string. We've still got our hanging activity just there. So again, they could be part of that. But remember, you have an endless resource of materials and toys in your home. And adding the element of light and shadow can really reignite the imagination of yourselves and of children to start using those toys again. So that's our shadow activity for this week. As always, if you do take part and have a go, please do take photographs or tell us what you saw on our social media pages, whether that be Facebook or Instagram. And thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.